Hari Om. Welcome to the second session of Abhijnana Sakuntalam. We have started Shakuntalam last Sunday. This is the immortal composition of Kavikula Guru Kalidasa. So welcome you all for this second session. Just a quick recap what we did last Sunday. We saw the source of Abhijnana Sakuntalam from the Mahabharata Adi Parva. And we saw how the very unromantic sort of narrative is given in the Mahabharata, and Kalidasa, our great Kalidasa, with his Midas touch, he has transformed the entire thing into a lovable, a relishable and very, very appreciable literary gem. So just for the recap, of course, one thing is there in the Mahabharata also. Before Kanava Maharshi sends Shakuntala back to her husband, she is little bit emotional. Kanava is also emotional, and the entire fourth act of Kalidasa's Shakuntala is based on that one germ of that emotional, what you can say, Alvida by Kanava Maharshi to Shakuntala. When he decides to send her back, what she says, Abhivadya munehe padau gantumaichat sa pauravaha Shakuntala cha pitaram abhivadya kritanjalihi pradakshini kritya tada pitaram vakyam abravit. She just made a pradakshina around her father, saluted her father and told him, Ajnanad me pita cheti duruktam vapi chandratam. If inadvertently, due to my ignorance, ajnanat, if I have spoken any harsh words or the words which I shouldn't have spoken at all, duruktam, akaryam vapi, anishtam va, kshantumarhati kashyapa. So you please forgive me for whatever sin, crime, mistakes I might have committed due to my ignorance. And eva muktaha natashiraha munihi na uvacha kinchana. Kanva was filled with that sentiment, the affection for the daughter. Na uvacha kinchana manushya bhavat kanavopi munihi ashruni avartayat. Though he was a Maharshi, he was a great sage, he was a human too. He was the foster father of Shakuntala, and therefore Ashruni avartayat. He just released few drops of tears from his eyes. And then he called other rishis and all, and then he said to them that this daughter Maya Lalita Nityam Mama Putri Yashaswini Vane Jata, she has been she grew up in the forest. Nacha janati kinchana. She is not aware of the, what you can say, the city etiquettes and all that. Ashramena patha sarvaihi niyatam kshatriyalayam. So he had sent a host of rishis and munis with her, and he tells them to lead her by a path which will not tax her much, because she is carrying her son also with her. Okay. Tathet tute sarve pratishtanta, etc., etc. And then we saw in the court scene, in the 73rd and 74th chapter, and a very fine description of Shakuntala being enraged and furious, and all that is done there. And then we have already seen that there was an aerial voice which declared that she is his duly wedded wife by Gandharva Vivaha, and Sarvadamana is his legitimate son. So that was the Mahabharata. Okay. Now I just wanted to bring out that point, on which Kalidasa has built up an entire fourth act with so many beautiful verses, and that affection affectionate father and the emotions, the sentimentality which pervades the entire scene when a girl gets married and is sent back to her husband's home. What is the situation at the girl's house, the bride's house? Even now, the situation hasn't much changed. So that is the universality of certain emotions, certain sentiments, and Kalidasa has built up an entire act wholly on his own on that, and therefore I wanted to read those, just one verse, just one verse, Munihi Ashrunya Vartayat, that's it. Okay, I told you last time that there are two more sources, two more texts which have similar type of stories, and one I referred to could be a source per se for Kalidasa, and that is Kattahari Jataka. There are so many Jataka tales, right? The Jataka tales are the tales of the Bodhisattva, the previous past lives of Buddha, okay? Buddha, Siddhartha, the Buddha. So the Bodhisattva's previous lives, there are so many Jataka tales, and we have the, what you can say, the Jataka for the original stories. You can refer to Professor N.K. Bhagwat's Jataka Katha Sandoho. Jataka Katha Sandoho. And here we are referring to Kattahari Jataka. Now this is a story without the names of Dushyanta and Shakuntala. The story is very much similar. And this story has the ring, the signet ring. Let us see the story in short as given by A.B. Gajendra Gadkar, and the edition is not available these days. A.B. Gajendra Gadkar's younger peer, R.D. Karmarkar, his book is available, and he has referred to A.D. Gajendra Gadkar as his guru and senior contemporary. But I had this book, I bought it on some streets in Mumbai while in 60s or early 70s. It's a very old book, that too in fragments, and after third act there are no notes, okay? But still, this is a very valuable book for me. So the story is like this. In Banaras, in Kashi, Varanasi becomes Banaras because of the Varna Viparyaya. Varanasi, Banarasa, R and N get changed, and V and B, Vabayoho Abhedaha, okay? So there was a king Brahmadatta ruling Varanasi, and once he went to forest and was wandering about in search of fruits because he was hungry. He went to forest for what? No Akheta, no Mrigaya, he went to forest and he was searching for fruits. And there he happened to see a peasant girl, a young girl, and she was cutting some wood, a farmer's girl, farmer's daughter, and she was cutting some wood, and to relieve her of her manual labor, she was singing also, just to divert her own self. So her beauty and her melodious singing drew the attention of King Brahmadatta of Varanasi. This Varanasi and King Brahmadatta are very typically portrayed. Even in Swapna Vasavadatta we have, the Swapna scene of Udayana and the Vidushaka, Kashi, Varanasi, Brahmadatta, Brahmadatta Nagare, Varanasi, and all that fumbling of Vidushaka. So this is a typical pair, okay? So the king is captivated by her beauty and by her melodious singing, and he gets attracted to her and marries her immediately, okay? He marries her immediately. She also doesn't have any inhibitions in marrying him. And immediately after the marriage, the consummation of the marriage, she conceives and she grows big and heavy immediately, because it is not any ordinary embryo, ordinary fetus, it is Bodhisattva Sakshat, and therefore it starts growing quickly in her womb and she becomes heavy with the fetus. She tells this to the king immediately. immediately after their intimacy, she feels that. Then when she tells this to the king that she is feeling heavy, he takes out his signet ring, gives it to her. And what does he say to her? He says, if you deliver a daughter, what you should do? You sell off the ring, and from that money you nourish the daughter. But if you deliver a son, bring him back to me with the signet ring. So if there is a daughter, don't take pains to come to me. Okay? You can nourish her by disposing of the ring and nourishing her, no need to come back to me if she's a daughter, if the child is a daughter. But if the child is a male child, do bring him to me with the signet ring. And then he leaves. Immediately he leaves. And then, the boy grew up there, because immediately she became heavy with the fetus and she delivered the child. And the boy started playing with the other boys, other friends in the forest. And once he was taunted and teased by his friends, oh, you are a fatherless child. You don't have a father. You don't have a father. So taunted thus by his friends, he came back to his mother and asked who his father was. And when she said that his father is not any ordinary person, but he is King Brahmadatta from Varanasi, he insisted that they go back to him, and he wants to sit in the lap of his father. Like the small Dhruva, he wanted to sit in the lap of his father Uttanapada. All children, they love to sit in the lap of their fathers. And therefore, she came to Varanasi with her son. His name is not given, and the signet ring. Okay. And when she presented the boy to the king, King Brahmadatta, and showed the signet ring as well, the king, though he knew her, though he remembered her, he said, no, this is, out of shame, he denied having married that girl. And he says, even the mudrika doesn't belong to me. That mudrika doesn't have the seal or the name of the king. And therefore Kalidasa has made so many improvisations. See, in Kalidasa Shakuntalam, when I tell you the storyline of that, the signet ring which he gives to Shakuntala has Dushyanta, the 3 letters on it. Okay, here there are no letters, no royal seal on that. And the girl, she said, the king says, Raja Anguli Muddikam Dattva Sache Dhita Hoti Imam Visajya. That is what he says, that Imam Visajya, you sell off this and nourish your daughter. Sache Putto Hoti Muddikaya Siddhi Mama Santikam Aneshasi. Then you will bring that putra to me. And when she shows that ring and presents the boy to the king, Raja Janantopi Parisamajhe Lajjaya. He was ashamed to confide in that, or to accept his folly. Namaiham puttotyaha. He is not my son. Namaiham puttotyaha. Ayam te deva muddika imam sanjanasi. Do you recognize this is your mudrika? She offers, and ayampi maiham muddika nahoti. This is also not my mudrika. So this is in Pali Jataka story. So he clearly denies all that. Then the girl wants to do an ordeal. It is Satchikiriya, that is Satyakriya, ordeal. Some divya she wants to perform. She takes the 6-year-old boy and hurls him in the sky and says that if he is your son, he will not fall down. If he is your legitimate son, and if I am not telling you the lie or untruth, he will sit in the mid-air, in the mid-region, in the antariksha. He will not fall down. And if I am lying and he is not your legitimate son, he will fall and die. And she hurls him up in the sky because that son is Bodhisattva. He sits there in Padmasana, cross-legged, and tells the king, I am your legitimate son. And then the king accepts both the queen, he makes her queen, and he accepts that child as his son. And after after Brahmadatta, I am so by Kalidasa, so the king has to be Dushyanta for me. So after Brahmadatta, this son becomes the king and he rules over the country, the Varanasi, and his name is Katthahari, that is Kashthavahana. Kashthavahana, because she is a peasant girl collecting woods and all, maybe that is the association for Shakuntala and Shakuntala, not that Shakuntala, but the peasant girl and her son, it is the Kashthavahana or Katthahari Jataka. So this is the story of Jataka, okay. Now here there is a ring, but there are no names of Dushyanta and Shakuntala. The ring doesn't carry any name, and there is an ordeal. So again a supernatural or superhuman element has to creep in, as in the Mahabharata. Of course, for the Jataka, Mahabharata story must have been there. What is the time of Jataka then? Mahabharata and Ramayana are age-old epics. The Jataka stories, normally they are placed in the 3rd century BCE to 1st century BCE, before the Common Era. And if we take Kalidasa to be 1st century BCE, perhaps he had Jataka story in front of him as one of the sources. Mahabharata, of course, Akshayo Mahakavinam, and therefore he had it, but perhaps he was aware of the Jataka, and from there he might have borrowed the idea of the signet ring. That is what the critics say. Anyhow, he might have borrowed it, but the improvisations which he has added to that, and it is not only the mudrika or the ring, it is the curse of Durvasa, which, these two episodes, the ring episode and the curse episode, has transformed the entire thing. Now we have seen in the Mahabharata as well as in the Jataka story, Dushyanta smarannapi na smarami iti abravit, says Mahabharata. And here also Janantopi, what is it is said? Janantopi parisamajhe lajjaya. Janantopi lajjaya, because of shame, what people will say, and therefore Janantopi. So this is very important. The king, in both these source, Akara, text, they know that the girl standing in front of the king is his duly wedded wife, and yet refuses to accept her as his wife, and refuses to accept the child as his child. And therefore we don't have any sympathy for the king as such. Where is the Udattattva there? But when this comes in the form of a drama, in the form of a Rupaka, Kalidasa wants to absolve his hero from any possible criticism, any possible blame, and therefore he has introduced the curse also along with this. So when the Dushyanta of Kalidasa doesn't recognize Shakuntala in the 5th act of Abhijnana Sakuntalam, the reader, the spectator, will have in one corner, oh yes, he is under the influence of the curse. How will he remember? And it is the curse of Durvasa, the great sage. And obviously, therefore, he doesn't recognize her. And therefore, we pardon him for all the wrongdoings. I mean, whatever behavior, his behavior to Shakuntala is not admissible, it is not permissible. But then he gets the benefit of that curse. And therefore, he gets our sympathy too. Because we see later on in the 6th act how the king really suffers and is agonized and undergoes too much of suffering and agony and pain after the repudiation of his beloved wife Shakuntala. So whatever Shakuntala has suffered after her tyaga, similar suffering Dushyanta also undergoes, Kalidasa Dushyanta. And therefore we pardon him, the spectators, the readers, they are all sympathetic to Dushyanta, and therefore his Udattattva, the Dhiro Udattattva, doesn't get maligned at all. So this was the second source. Okay. Now let us come to the third similar story. I don't call it a source, it may not be a source. But the similar story with so many similar names also, and even the Anasuya Priyamvada also occur in the Padma Purana version of Svargakhanda. Padma Purana, Svargakhanda, there is Shakuntalopakhyana. As in the Adiparva of the Mahabharata, there is Shakuntala Upakhyana. This Adiparva I have referred to is from Gita Press, Gorakhpur, but I told you yesterday that there is a critical edition, and chapters 63 to 69 you can refer to for the Shakuntalopakhyanā. Here it is 68 onwards. Okay. Now Padma Purana, there is another problem there. What is the problem? All the versions of Padma Purana do not contain Shakuntalopakhyanā. For example, Padma Purana published by Anandashram Press, Pune, doesn't have this Shakuntala Upakhyana at all. But the northern versions, they have this Shakuntalopakhyanā, and that is mostly similar to Kalidasa's drama. Now what is the story in that? The story is similar like this, and one professor, Haradatta Sharma, he says that Padma Purana is the source of Kalidasa's drama, but there are so many changes and it is so very flat, Padma Purana narration, and there are so many loopholes and lacuna which can't be justified by a reader, that one is tempted to say, oh, it is not Padma Purana which Kalidasa borrowed, but maybe from Kalidasa the version of Padma Purana might have got borrowed. Okay. So the Shakuntalopakhyanā, the episode is like this. There are the episode of the ring and the episode of the curse, both are found in Padma Purana. Okay. And the proposal of the Purohita to keep Shakuntala till her delivery, because both reach Dushyanta's court before they deliver a child. Okay, in both the versions, in the drama as well as Padma Purana. But what happens is here, Priyamvada and Anasuya are also accompanying Shakuntala to the court of Dushyanta. That is one change. Kalidasa doesn't send them. Kanava doesn't send them with Shakuntala. And when Shakuntala says, oh, I have to say goodbye to my friends at the bank of this river, they won't be accompanying me any further. And then Kanava says, Ime api pradeye. Even they have to get married one day or the other. How can I send them with you now? So that was a very wise thing. I mean, who are we to say call Kalidasa wise? But then in minute details also, how many changes he has brought in, that really attracts our attention. Now, when they also come, but before they come there, like in the Shakuntala, for example, Shachi Tirtham Vandamanayaha Hastat Bhrashtam Anguliyakam, that is the account given, that while she is offering some water at Shachi Tirtha, from Shakuntala's fingers, it just slips off. And that is also so natural, so logical. Why? It is a male finger, Dushyanta's finger, the ring has adorned so long, and naturally this is a Lavanyavati, a frail, like Shama, Tanvi and all that. Her fingers would be little tapering and not so whatever. So, so it doesn't fit into her finger, and therefore it slipped off. And she is, so much excited to meet her lover after a gap of some 5-6 months. She is asanna sattva or asanna sattva lakshana, as Kalidasa tells, So Kanava also recognizes her because of that only. I mean, there is a Shariri Vak in the Yajnashala and all, but then it is so visible. 5-6 months of pregnancy is visible, right? And therefore, she is so excited while taking the water and giving the offering, it just slipped off from her finger. And she didn't even notice it. Until when she comes back to the court, and when the king doesn't recognize her, she wants to take out the ring, and then she realizes, oh, Anguliyaka Shunyam. So there is no Anguliyaka there, So this is very logical. Here what happens in Padma Purana version, they are crossing Saraswati river, okay? And while crossing that Saraswati river, Shakuntala takes out the ring and keeps it to be with Priyambada, and just tells her, you please take care of this ring because I am going to have bath in Saraswati river, okay? And therefore she takes out the ring, she herself takes out the ring and gives it to Priyambada. Priyambada wants to tie it in the cloth, but it slips from her hands and falls in the water. She keeps silent. She doesn't even talk about it. That is not admissible, right? A true friend, she should have, there itself somebody would have dived in and got the ring, But Priyambada doesn't utter a single word. And after bath and all, naturally Shakuntala is excited to meet her lover, and therefore she forgets that to take back the ring from Priyambada, and then they come there to the court, and Dushyanta doesn't recognize, and then she asks Priyambada, and there is no ring. Okay, so this is also, if it is Priyambada, who is a very dear friend, she would have taken extra care. She should have taken extra care to keep it safe. But that doesn't happen. So these are some minor changes, but otherwise the ring is there, the curse is there, and they all come to the court of Dushyanta. The names are the same, Dushyanta and Shakuntala. And when the king doesn't recognize her, it is the Purohita who tells that till her delivery, let her stay with me. And because the king has been, there is a boon by the seers that he will beget a Chakravarti son. And so when the son is born, we will see whether he bears all the signs and all that. And then she is carried away by Menaka. Other part of the story is similar. But at the end again, it is Kashyapa. The same story. Matali comes and Dushyanta is taken to Indraloka to fight the Durjaya enemies and all. And when he comes back, our Kalidasa has made him stop on the way at Hemakuta mountain, which is the ashrama of Maricha. Now here, the same story, Matali comes, takes back Dushyanta. After the fight, he comes back. But there Kashyapa also is there, that is Kanava Muni is also there. And it is, first Dushyanta meets the Muni, Maricha, and then he sees the son playing with the cub of a lion, okay? And then he gets attracted to that child, and then he is wondering whose child it must be. And then Kashyapa comes there, from where he comes, from Malini Tira to Hemakuta to the Himalayas, this unity of, spatial unity of place is also not adhered to in the Padma Purana. So many stories, they have mixed together, okay? And Kashyapa himself tells Dushyanta that it is your son by Shakuntala. Then where is Shakuntala? Shakuntala comes from inside, okay? But first Dushyanta meets Maricha, then he sees Sarvadamana, then Kashyapa comes and tells him that this is your son, and then Shakuntala comes, and then there is reunion. And therefore the charm of recognizing that small young boy as his own son, which happens in Abhijnana Sakuntalam, 7th act, you will simply love to read that. I will be reading every line of it. So it is so wonderful, step by step. One step goes and Dushyanta gets, convinced that he is my son. So this gradual recognition and the charm lying in that is all lost when Kashyapa says, this is your son. Okay. So this is the account in Padma Purana. So we have the Mahabharata version, which is very dry and skeletal, unromantic. Then we have Katthahari Jataka, without the individuality of the names and places, etc. It is Varanasi's King Brahmadatta and some peasant girl. Only common factor is ring, but that ring doesn't serve the purpose of Abhijnana, because despite showing the ring, the king doesn't recognize, fails to or refuses to recognize her by saying, Muddika api not mine, mama na hoti, okay, Muddika api mama na hoti. So that is the second version, and Shakuntala has to perform an ordeal, hurling up the child and all that. So both in Mahabharata, Ariel voice confirms it is his son. In Katthahari Jataka, the ordeal confirms that it is his son. So superhuman element is there. And in the Padma Purana, it is his son is told by the Maharshi, and that is again the similar story with both these transformational episodes, but not to the finest of its literary criticism or literary beauty. And after that, when we come to Abhijnana Sakuntalam, it is a complete metamorphosis, complete transformation. So now we would like to see in short what is the storyline. Today in this lecture we will see the storyline, and from next Sunday we will start reading the drama as such. Okay. So now what is the storyline of this? We'll go act wise. Okay. Of course it starts with the Prastavana, the Nandi, the Prastavana. All the Kalidasa's dramas, he praises Shiva. Even in his Raghuvamsha, he praises Shiva Parvati. Right? Vagartha viva sampraktau vagartha pratipattaye. So he is a great Shiva Bhakta. The very name Kalidasa, Kali, he is the Dasa, the slave of Kali, the fierce form of Parvati. It is nothing but Parvati, it is fierce form of Parvati, Bhadrakali. And therefore he is closely connected with Kalidasa, with Shiva family as such. And therefore there is Shiva's praise in the Nandi. About Kalidasa's date and about these technical terms as Prastavana, Nandi, Vishkambhaka, Praveshaka, etc. I think we have had enough discussions over the last 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. It was June 2022. I started this open learning for all in Samskrita Sahitya Rasaswada, and I really am thankful and grateful to the anugraha of God, Bhagwan, Shankaracharya and everybody, and well wishes of you all, that not even a single Sunday has been missed so far. Every Sunday there has been this talk, 9:30 to 10:30. So this is really a commendable thing, and all the credit goes to the anugraha and the anukampa. So you just go through, the earlier olas, and if you have any difficulty, you can put it in the group. I think the group has been created, and Ridya is there to monitor all the things, so she can dig it out, or you can listen to some of the earlier lectures, maybe of Bhasa's plays or Kalidasa's Malavikagnimitram, and come to know about all these technicalities, or the, what you can say, the meta language of the dramaturgy, like Nandi, Prastavana and all that. So the first act starts that Dushyanta has come out for an akheta for Mrigaya, and he comes near the forest, but and he is very thirsty, and he is seated in a chariot, and the chariot is going with full speed, and he chasing a deer. While chasing the deer, Dushyanta is all ready with his, stretched out bow and all, and the deer, beautiful description of that deer in the very first act, Griva Bhanga Viramam, and Viyati Bahutaram Stokamurvyam Prayati, how that deer is so afraid. Now and then it's turning around to see how far is the chariot, Syandane, Baddha Drishtihi and all that. Very beautiful. This is all Kalidasa, Swabhavokti Alankara. And then they appear two boys, hermit boys, and say, Ashrama Mrigoyam Nahantavyo Nahantavya. This is Ashrama Mriga. You cannot kill that. This is not a vana. This is not a forest. This is Abhayaranya, because here is the Gurukula, and the Rishiputras go on their way, and Dushyanta immediately withdraws, he controls, and then he says, oh, there is an ashrama of Kanva, then Vinita Veshena Abhyupagantavyam. I should not enter the ashrama in all my royal royal pomp and all that, because it's an ashrama. So I have to be Vinita Veshena Gantavyam. And therefore he asks his army to camp there itself, and goes alone in the ashrama, because he doesn't want them to recognize that, oh, a king is coming with his retinue, and the ashrama people, they are not, familiar with all the protocol and all those things. Like a governor coming, protocol, and so many things are there. But then he doesn't want to trouble and harass the ashrama people, and therefore he goes alone. When he approaches, I am telling the story in detail. I told you, I will tell you in brief. So when he approaches, he just listens, some smiles and some sweet like voices of some 2-3 girls speaking to each other in very confidently, because there is none around to listen to their talks. It's very silent zone. And then he says, Vrikshantarito Bhutva, let me hide myself behind the bush. And he just listens to them. He sees. What he sees? 3 young girls, they are watering the plants near the ashrama. It's not outside the ashrama. It must be near, but some feet away from the main kuti or utaja. Because there are references to that, utajam gamisha maha, etc., etc. So they are watering the plants in the nearby, in the precincts of the hermitage, you can say, in the nearby area, the boundaries. And while watering, and they are, like kilkiya, what is that? Kalakala dhvani kar rahi hai, and, gappa marta hai maitrini, like friends chatting with each other, smilingly and all that. And the first impression when Dushyanta sees all 3 of them, aho madhuram asam darshanam, how beautiful they look. Madhuram asam darshanam, not asyaha. He doesn't single out one Shakuntala. All 3 of them in their rustic beauty, in their natural attire with flowers to decorate their bodies and no other ornaments, bark garments, but so simple, and real beauty lies in simplicity. So, Maho Madhuram Asam Darshanam. But what happens is, while watering the plant, perhaps the bees were hovering around some flowering plants, and when Shakuntala started watering it, the bees got disturbed and it started hovering around her. Again, there is a beautiful verse, I won't quote now, but then Dushyanta is so jealous of the bee. Bee is going near her ears as if, murmuring some sweet nothings, in some secrets into her ear like a lover would do. So Karanantike Charan, and then comes and sits near her lip as if he is kissing, that bee is kissing. And Vayam Tattvan Veshan Hataha Madhukara Tvam Kalukriti, So Dushyanta's expressions are very like a gallant lover, a passionate lover. And then he can, slowly, when the conversation proceeds, he can identify that other two are the friends and this must be the Sakhi, because, and then there is a Sarasija Manuviddham Shaivale Nati Ramyam, etc. Kimi Vahi Madhuranam Mandanam Nakritinam. So beautiful verses and Swabhavuktis and Arthantaranyasa, Alankara and all that. And when the bee is not to be controlled by these three young ladies, they tell her, why don't you call the Raja, he is supposed to take care of his praja. We are also his praja, right? And Raja makes an entry there and he wards up the bee. And then there is a conversation, who is he and all that. First he wants to, conceal his identity, but by and by his identity gets revealed because of his stature, because of his decorum, the way he carries himself, the way he talks to the girls. It all carries a sophisticated language and behavior, so they can easily identify. And then he asks, how come she is Kanva Duhita and Anasuya, in a very nutshell, not in a way in Mahabharata, like in Mahabharata Shakuntala retells whatever she has heard from Kanva telling the sages, but Anasuya in between stopping and leaving the rest by suggestive power or Vyanjana, okay. And this is again a very remarkable feature of Kalidasa. Kalidasa doesn't write everything explicitly, doesn't express everything in clear terms, like black and white, 2 + 2 = 4. Many things are left to the imagination of the reader, the spectator, the listener. So that is not the Abhidha, but the Vyanjana. Tisro vai Shabda Shaktayaha, Abhidha, Lakshana and Vyanjana. Abhidha is the expressed power. Lakshana is the implied sense. Abhidha is the dictionary meaning, Sanketitartha, dictionary meaning as it is given in the lexicons. Lakshana is little bit transferred meaning, it is implied meaning, and Vyanjana is suggested meaning, it is dhvani or suggestion. And the famous example given, I may quote here because this is a typical, what you can say, Kavyashastra Grantha called Mammata's Kavya Prakasha. And there the example which is given, I might have given in some lecture, I don't know. But for the newcomers, maybe this will be just to know how these three Shabda Shakti, they are, functioning. So Gangayam Ghoshaha is the famous example given in the Alankara Shastra Granthas. Gangayam, in the streams of Ganga river. Ghoshaha is a habitat. Habitat for whom? For the cowherd boys and girls. Okay. Gangayam Ghoshaha. Gauri Vada in Marathi, we can say Gauri Vada. Gopa Griham or Gopa, what you can say, Gopa Gramaha. Gopa Gramaha. Ghoshaha. Okay. So Gangayam Ghoshaha. Now, is it possible to have a habitat fully, the village, in the waters of Ganga, in the streams of Ganga? What is the meaning of Gangayam? The Abhidha Artha is, it is the Adhikarana Karaka, Saptami Ekavachana. So, in the Ganga. Okay, but that is not possible. And therefore, the implied meaning would be Gangayam Ghoshaha is Gangatate Ghoshaha or Gangatire Ghoshaha. So that Saptamyartha is transferred to Tira, another word, Gangatira or Gangatata. And that makes sense. Otherwise, Gangayam Ghoshaha is incredible, but Ganga Tate Ghoshaha makes sense. And here Lakshana stops. Lakshana is Mukhyartha Badhe Lakshana Syad. When the Mukhyartha, Abhidhartha doesn't work, doesn't help you, or doesn't clarify the meaning of the sentence, then you go for the implied sense, okay, metaphorical sense. So here Lakshana stops, and then Vyanjana, which is based on the Abhidha, it is Abhidha Moola Vyanjana, or it could be Lakshana Moola Vyanjana also, but Abhidha Moola Vyanjana mostly, and then it is Gangayam, okay, but then the very concept that there is some habitat on the banks of Ganga, that means how blessed must be the people residing on the banks of Ganga, because Ganga has a special place in the hearts of every Indian. It is the Vahini of Indian ethos, our Sanatana Dharma, and therefore, every day you can have a dip in Ganga. How fortunate you are! Kitna saubhagya hai! That is one thing. And there is Pavanatva, because there is Pavanatva associated with Ganga, and there is Shaitya. Anybody staying, on the banks of a river or a stream or a brook or a sea, there is Shaitya. Nice breezes, cold breezes, cool breezes, and therefore Shaitya Pavanatvadi Dhvanyate. So that is the Dhvani. So in short, this is the Abhidha, Lakshana and Vyanjana, and I was telling you that Kalidasa exercises or lays more emphasis on Vyanjana than on Abhidha, and therefore when Anasuya is telling the birth account to Dushyanta, Shakuntala's birth account, few things she leaves incomplete for the imagination. So from that I came to Abhidha, Lakshana, Vyanjana, okay. So he hears all that from Anasuya, and then there is somebody coming, because the army of Dushyanta is just camped besides the river. He had just entered the ashrama, but the army is there only, right? And maybe one of the elephants in his army has gone wild, and the elephant has entered the ashrama parisara. So there is an alert, there is an alarm declared that there is Aranyaka Gaja. And because there is Aranyaka Gaja Vrittanta, the three ladies, they say, let us go to the Uttaja, because of the Aranyaka Vrittantena Bhitaha Santrastaha, and therefore they are little scared, and therefore they go back, okay. And there ends the first act. So the first act happens in and around the hermitage of Kanava. So that is the place of happening, not in the camp, not in the palace, okay. Dushyanta comes there, and when he comes there, he says, Vame taratme bahu spurati, he gets some Shubha Shakuna, he gets some pulsation in the right arm. Again, this is a Shakuna Shastra, and these are our, what you can say, the customs or some practices or some beliefs which we have, from times immemorial. For ladies, if it is the Vama, anything Vama, Papani lavalavate, fadafadate, davya dolyachi, there is a Marathi song, Papani fadafadate, davya dolyachi. So any Vama thing for Vama is good, and any Vametara, the right thing, pulsating vibration in the right eye, right arm, right thigh, that is all Shubha for the males. And so this is all takes place in the first act. The second act, and one more thing, in the first act he asks about Kanava because he wants to offer his obeisance and salute Maharshi, because Raja has to pay his tributes and homages to the Rishis and the Gurukulas nearby his kingdom, and his kingdom is not far away. Hastinapura is not far away from the Malini river. In 3 days, because he has promised in the third act, within 3 days you read Dushyanta one later every day, you concentrate upon, and within 3 days I will send you an entire army to escort you back to my kingdom. So it's not far away, right? So he wants to pay his obeisance to Kanava, but then he listens that Kanava is away. What for? Na falani ahartum, like in the Mahabharata, not for fetching fruits. He has gone all the way to Somatirtha. Somatirtha, the Paschima Kshetra, that is Prabhasatirtha. Prabhasatirtha, near Dwaraka, near Kathia, in Kathiawad, right? Somatirtha. Why? Because there are some bad stars for Shakuntala, and to pacify the effects of those evil stars, he has gone personally to Somatirtha. Now, considering the means of transport and travel in those days, he would go on foot, right? And therefore, to go and come back, it will be minimum 6 months, not few days, few months. And therefore, Kanava is away from the ashrama for a considerable time. So, when Dushyant and Shakuntala izhar karte hai apne pyar ka, they become intimate, even for their relation to grow up, there are few days there. It is not falani ahartum gataha and muhurtam sampratikshasva, not like that, right? And another thing, one thing is Kanava is kept away, far away from the scene. That is one thing. For the drama to proceed, it is necessary. Secondly, we also get to know everything is not well for Shakuntala. There is something bad happening. He has gone to pacify, but something bad may happen. So we are also ready in a way, So these are small things which leave some impressions in our mind, right? So these are the purposes. Now in the second act, I won't be able to complete all the 7 acts today, I think. Yeah. So in the second act, Dushyanta tells Vidushaka, Madhavya. Vidushaka is his intimate friend. He always accompanies king wherever he goes, right? And he tells her that he liked that girl, that Ashrama Kanya. The moment he has seen her, that Ashrama Kanya is not going away from my mind. I see her only, even if I close my eyes, I see her. I can't get sleep and this and that. So king is like, already suffering the pangs of separation from his so-called beloved. And there, because I said that the kingdom is not too far, there comes a messenger from the kingdom, from Hastinapura, that king's mother wants to perform some vrata, and for that vrata, she wants Dushyanta back. So please don't spend so many days for Mrigaya. I want you back on the 3rd day or the 2nd day. So there is some vrata, and therefore she wants her son back. And in the meanwhile, because Kanava is away, the evil forces in and around, they have started troubling the ashrama inmates, the residents, and they are causing some vignas in the yajna and the daily routine yagas, etc. of the Rishimunis. Kanava, because of his tapas, he could create an aura of protective shield. But Kanava being away, the people, the evil things and evil forces, we call them Rakshasas, Tanni Dokavar Kadle, and therefore they are troubling the people around. And therefore the king is requested, why don't you stay here for a few more days? We have this Anusthana for some 15-20 days. Till it gets completed, please be here to protect our yajna. And therefore, Dushyanta tells Vidushaka that you are as good as me, and my mother considers you as son. I am required here. And one more thing is Shakuntala, right? That is not one more, that is the thing. And one more thing is protecting the sacrifice. So please go in my place as a proxy, because for the queen, you are also as good as her son. Madhavya is very happy because he is tired of the forest stay. going around here and there and not eating apupa and modaka whenever he wants. Whatever they get, the fruits and all, he has to subsist on that. He being a Brahmana is Mishtanna Priya, and therefore he is very happy, at one go he says, yes, let me go. Now Dushyanta thinks that suppose this is a Vachala Batu, Vachala Brahmana. If he goes in the country, I mean in Hastinapura, and tells this to my wives, there are 2 wives already, Vasumati and Hamsapadika, or even my mother, that's not a good sign, because king hasn't met her for the second time even now, till now. It's only one sight. So there is nothing that has, that has been growing as their love affair or whatever. So he says, he tells Vidushaka, I told you about that Shakuntala, no? And when he told about Shakuntala, what is the comment of Vidushaka, Pinda Kharjura Udvejitasya Tintinyamiva Abhilasha. If you eat too many sweet things, you pine. You long to eat something sour. So your fascination for this Ashrama Kanya, who is undecorated, she is rustic, and all that. You have so many good ladies in your harem. So this is like Pinda Kharjura Udvejitasya Tintinyamiva Bhilashaha. So the king wants to take it forward and tells Vidushaka, whatever I told about Shakuntala, no, Parihasa Vijalpitam Sakhe, na Paramarthena Grihatam Vachaha. That's all just for fun I was talking to you. So please don't be, so serious about what I talk to you. And then he sends him off. So this is also very, very significant. Why significant? Because Vidushaka, he knew that there is Shakuntala, there is some love for Shakuntala, that Ashrama Kanya in the mind of Dushyanta. But then when Dushyanta himself confides and says, oh, that was just a fun, I was just making fun. It was parihasa. Na paramarthena grihatam vacha. Nothing, it's not true. No truth lies therein. So just forget it. It was just a passing, what you can say, कुछ बोलते हैं ना उसको, passing feeling of some flirting like thing, but then it is not true love and all that. So that is ensured that Dushyanta will never be asked by Vidushaka, what happened to that love? He will never ask, because, and that Kalidasa has ensured, otherwise, Dushyanta will be again and again asked by somebody, oh, you met some girl there and you were talking about the love and all that. Isn't she coming back? You told her that, all this. Nothing of the sort will happen, because he has already made the provision that Vidushaka keeps quiet, and he forgets as his nature is, forgetful by nature. And therefore he will forget, once he is fed with the modakas and all, he will forget every other thing. Okay, so that is also ensured. So this becomes the second act. And now in the third act, for the first time, there is some private space, some private room and some time to be spent together for Dushyanta and Shakuntala. And even there, Dushyanta doesn't hasten up to fulfill his own desire. He waits till he hears from Shakuntala that she also loves him. So this is not a one-sided love. And therefore, like in Hindi movies, you have one-sided love and then killings of the things and all that, killing of the girls. Such things will never happen in Abhijata Samskrita Sahitya. There it has to be taptena taptamayasa ghatanaya yogyam, as Kalidasa says in Vikramorvashiyam. The heated iron can melt, can get united with another piece of heated iron. Aag barabar dono taraf jalni chahiye. The love has to emerge from both the sides, and then only it becomes fructified. Till then there is no fruition. And then there is the famous scene, you might have seen the lovely pictures by Raja Ravivarma, Shakuntala writing a love letter to Dushyanta, and that too on a lotus leaf. With her nakhagra, with the tip of her nails, so manicure, this is not today's thing. They are tapering like a pen, the nails. So this is not today's invention, manicure, taking care of your nails and painting. In fact, in the 64 kalas, there is nakhagra, dashana teeth, and angaraga, painting your bodies, painting your teeth also, and painting the nakhagra. That is one of the kalas. I just spoke in the NBF on these kalas. So there are so many things. So that is the famous picture. Third act, then they meet, and after that what happens, we'll see in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. See you next time. Till then, Hari Om.